Hi, good evening. How was your day? Tonight, I bring you a story that is just a little sad and a little eerie. Deep in the midnight forest, where no one should be, you might hear the sound of creaking swings. I'll be reading this story in a soft whisper, so please close your eyes and let yourself drift into the world of the tale. And if, at any moment, you feel as if someone is there with you, just keep your eyes gently closed. Creaking swings in the midnight forest. Shiori had been seeing the same dream every night. In the dream, she was walking alone through a deep, dark forest. The ground beneath her feet was damp and soft. Each step made a faint crunch sound. The air was cool and still. Every time she breathed in, the quiet seemed to sink deep into her chest. And there, in the farthest part of the forest, stood a single girl. A small figure wearing a white dress. Shiori tried to call out to her, but no voice came out. No matter how many times she dreamed it, this was always the moment when she woke up. Her heart was beating fast. Shiori lay there, staring at the ceiling, her breath short and shaky. Again, she whispered, "This dream." Her small voice was swallowed by the darkness. That night, she only had the dream again. Deep in the forest, the girl in the white dress was standing there. Her small back facing Shiori, just like always. Shiori knew this was only a dream. She knew. And yet, she couldn't do anything. Somewhere in her mind, a single thought kept echoing. This dream. Again. A faint uneasiness spread through her chest, thick and slow, like ink bleeding into water. She wanted to walk up, but her body wouldn't move. It felt as if she had been buried deep beneath heavy, cold mud. Sweat crawled down her back, slow and damp. But tonight was a little different. From somewhere deep in the forest, a low whisper of wind began to stir. The trees trembled, leaves rustled softly. With each sound, a chill brushed the back of Shiori's neck. A small voice drifted from somewhere deep in the darkness. "Shiori-chan." She froze. Someone had called her name. Clearly, directly. It had never happened in her dreams before. Her heart gave a tight, painful thump. She only took one small step forward. And then, the wind stopped. The entire forest held its breath, wrapped in a sudden, unnatural silence. And in that silence, the girl slowly turned her head. "Kee." A faint creaking sound like bones grinding together, echoed deep inside Shirley's ears. Her face was hidden in shadow. Shirley couldn't see it clearly, but her eyes, wet with moonlight, they glimmered faintly in the dark. "Come, over here." The girl's lips moved silently, but Shirley understood every word. And in the very next moment, Shirley woke up. Shirley's heart was pounding, so hard it almost hurt. She lay still, listening. This was her room. This was reality. And yet, somewhere, she thought she heard it. The faint sound of wind passing through. A soft, distant rush, as though the forest had followed her here. And beyond that sound, from somewhere she couldn't see, came a whisper. "Come closer." Her breath caught. She only pulled the blanket up to her chest, clutching it tight, and tried to breathe slowly, quietly. But she couldn't sleep. Outside the window, the night drifted past in silence. She closed her eyes again and again, but each time she did, the pale figure of the girl in the white dress flickered behind her eyelids, never fading, never leaving. And then a single bird called out. The sky slowly began to turn a faint, washed-out blue. Shirley hadn't slept at all when morning finally came. That night, even after crawling into bed, Shirley's chest refused to calm. She turned over, again and again, eyes closing, opening, over and over, until she heard it. Deep inside her ears, the whisper returned. "Come closer." By the time she realized it, she was no longer in her room. She only was standing in the forest. Dream? Reality? She couldn't tell anymore. Her bare feet sunk into the damp earth. With each step, the grass beneath her whispered, "Zack, zack." A wet, muffled sound, unfamiliar, unnatural. The air was heavy, cold. Each breath left her chest feeling hollow, chilled to the bone. Just then, the wind rushing through the forest suddenly stopped. The rustling of leaves, the chirping of insects, everything fell silent, except for that sound. Creak, creak. That faint, rasping sound echoed sharply through the breathless woods. Shirley's vision opened up, and then she saw it. From the thick branch of an old tree, two worn-out swings hung side by side, and yet only one of them was slowly swaying, even though no one was sitting on it. Beyond the swing, she thought she saw a shadowy figure. She only held her breath. The air around her suddenly felt heavier. Inside her head, she heard her voice again. Shiori-chan. She could hear it clearly, but couldn't tell where it was coming from. Out of the corner of her eye, a pale shadow starred. The girl. She stood silently by the swings, her head bowed low. There was no breeze, and yet her long hair drifted softly in the still air. Then, the girl slowly raised a hand and pointed to the empty swing beside her. She only felt her heart pounding so hard it hurt as she took one step, and then another, closer to the girl. Moonlight spilled across the ground at the girl's feet. There was no shadow. She only stopped, swallowing hard. Then, the girl's shoulders moved, just slightly, and in a low, trembling whisper that seemed to stir the air around them, she spoke. So, you finally came. The girl stood by the swings, her head bowed, motionless. She only felt her heart pounding so violently it felt as if it might burst. One step, and then another. She moved closer to the girl. And then, the girl slowly lifted her face. Under the pale moonlight, her features were hidden in shadow, too dark to see clearly. But her eyes, those damp, glistening eyes, caught the faintest trace of light in the surrounding darkness. Shiori-chan. The voice was soft, so small, and trembling, as if it might break at any moment. And in that instant, deep within Shiori's chest, a long-forgotten memory slowly started back to life. Those swings, this forest. She remembered now. When she was little, she used to play here all the time. And there was always a girl by her side. Her name was Mina. Mina-chan. Shiori's lips trembled as she whispered her name. The girl slowly nodded and gave her a gentle, fragile smile. You finally remembered me, Shiori-chan. The moment Shiori heard her voice, a single tear slipped down her cheek. Her chest tightened painfully, and then another memory surfaced. A promise she had made with Mina long ago. Shiori-chan, even when we grow up, let's always be friends. But that promise was never kept. That day, there had been an accident, and Mina was gone. The grief was too much to bear, and so she only had locked the memory away deep inside her heart. Mina stood quietly beside the two swings, her gaze fixed gently on Shiori. Bathed in the pale glow of the moon, her figure began to fade, little by little, as though melting into the night. I'm sorry for leaving you alone, Mina-chan. Shiori's voice trembled as she spoke. Mina shook her head slowly. Her soft whisper drifted through the silent forest. No, that's not true. I'm the one who left you alone, Shiori-chan. I'm the one who should be sorry. A tender, lonely smile crossed Mina's face. And in that moment, a sudden night breeze swept through, sending both wings swaying ever so slightly. Shiori wiped away her tears and slowly lowered herself onto one of the two swings. In the moonlit forest, the swing swayed gently beneath her. She closed her eyes and let out a long, trembling breath. And then, before she realized it, Shiori was no longer her grown-up self. She was the little girl she used to be. Beside her, on the other swing, sat a small Mina-chan. The two of them began to pump their legs, swinging higher and higher, their laughter spilling into the quiet night. Shiori-chan, let's go higher. Okay, you too, Mina-chan. The cool night breeze brushed their cheeks, carrying their laughter deep into the heart of the forest. Before she knew it, large tears were rolling down Shiori's face. She turned her head, but the spot where Mina had been sitting was empty now. Mina-chan was gone. Only Shiori remained, sitting on her swing, rocking softly beneath the silent night sky. Yet, somehow, there was no fear. Instead, a quiet warmth lingered deep in her chest. Shiori wiped away her tears and slowly stood up. One last time, she softly called out Mina's name. There was no answer. Taking a deep breath, Shiori turned and began walking out of the forest. With every crunch of falling leaves beneath her feet, the small ache in her chest seemed to loosen little by little. Then, she suddenly stopped. When she turned around, she saw the two swings side by side, swaying slowly even though there was no wind. As if Mina and the little girl she once was were still sitting there together. She only smiled faintly, her voice trembling as she whispered, I hope someday, somehow, we can meet again. And with that, she quietly left the forest behind. The sound of birdsong gently woke Shiori from her sleep. The moment she opened her eyes, she felt a cool trace of tears sliding down her cheeks. It felt as if she had been dreaming. And yet, a sharp ache lingered deep inside her chest. Still lying under the covers, Shiori slowly brought both hands to her face and buried it there. And then, she began to cry. She cried and cried like a little girl again, until her breath came in trembling gasps and the tears refused to stop. She had no idea how much time had passed. Eventually, when her breathing finally began to settle, she only happened to glance down at her feet. Her feet were lightly stained with dirt, but she had been at home all night. With trembling fingers, she touched her toes gently. They were cool to the touch, carrying the faint scent of grass. Morning sunlight streamed softly through the window, filling the room with a quiet glow. For a long moment, she only gazed outside at the pale sky, then slowly closed her eyes. Perhaps she would never see that dream again. And yet, deep inside her heart, she could almost hear Mina's gentle laughter. That's the end of tonight's story. All the fear has faded away, gone with the candle's flame. Now you can rest easy and drift into sleep. Good night.